Hello friends, welcome once again to Daily Nuggets. Today I will be sharing with you from the Bible, from the book of 1 Corinthians chapter 10 from verse 1 to 13. And so I read, "Moreover, brethren, I would not that you should be ignorant how that all our fathers were under the cloud and all passed through the sea, and were all baptized unto Moses in the cloud and in the sea, and did all eat the same spiritual meat, and did all drink the same spiritual drink, for they drank of that spiritual rock that followed them, and that rock was Christ. But with many of them God was not well pleased, for they were overthrown in the wilderness. Now these things were our examples, to the intent we should not lust after evil things, as they also lusted. Neither be ye idolaters, as were some of them. As it is written, the people sat down to eat and drink, and rose up to play. Neither let us commit fornication, as some of them committed, and fell in one day 23,000. Neither let us tempt Christ, as some of them also tempted, and were destroyed of serpents. Neither murmur ye, as some of them also murmured, and were destroyed of the destroyer. Now all these things happened unto them for examples, and they are written for our admonition, upon whom the ends of the world are come. Wherefore, let him that thinketh it standeth take heed lest he fall. There hath no temptation taken you, but such as is common to man. But God is faithful, who will not suffer you to be tempted above what you are able, but will with the temptation also make a way to escape, that you may be able to bear under it." So what are we talking about today? Paul is writing to the Corinthians, and he's going back to the journey of the Israelites through the wilderness. Here was the people of God who had been under oppression in Egypt, and after a certain time, 430 years after their sojourn in Egypt, God had brought deliverance. And so they were led out of Egypt by Moses, and they were in the wilderness, in the desert, for 40 years. And Paul is making a reference to this time in the wilderness. First, he starts with the glorious exit of the Israelites from Egypt. He talks about the fact that they saw the great manifestation of the power of God. On a daily basis, they received food literally dropped on heaven. Manna it was. Every morning they woke up and there was manna all over the fields for them to just pick according to what they needed, their daily needs. This was a miracle. When there was no water, Moses was instructed by God to strike the rock, and water came out of the rock. In a desert, in a wilderness, they were being fed daily. They had water to drink. What does this say to us? It tells us that the glories of God that we have experienced, they're supposed to help us keep our focus and not to be distracted and turn away from God. Now, the Bible goes on to tell us, Paul begins to further remind and recollect the fact that they, in spite of all these glorious things, some people still missed it. Some people became idolaters and they were killed. God is fair. God is not partial. The fact that he brought everyone out of Egypt does not mean that if you begin to misbehave, he's just going to continue like that. Here were the Israelites. Some of them became idol worshippers. They turned the gold and silver that God had given them from Egypt into an idol to worship. God had told the women to ask of the Egyptian women, the Israelite women, to ask the Egyptian women for their jewelry, and they gave it to them. That was not an ordinary occurrence. It was the power of God granting them favor with the Egyptians so that they would spoil them. And indeed, they gave them their jewelry. Who does that on a daily basis? Just borrow out your jewelry to a whole tribe. And of course, they left with it. That was God's strategy to make the women wealthy. But what did they do with these jewels later? They turned it into a golden calf. Let us be careful that the gift that God gave us does not become an idol to us. Some of them began to lust. Lust are those inner deep cravings that we have, but they are not of God. What are you craving for? You cannot have lust and at the same time have the love of the Father. And so here we see the Israelites, in spite of the glorious manifestations of God in their midst, some of them lost their focus. And 23,000 in a particular situation was killed in a day. Now going back to the Exodus, we see that about 600,000 people actually came out. So out of them, some were lost. But let us not be. Paul says, all these things are examples for us to learn from. Let us look at the good examples. Some people still made it. Let us follow the examples of the good people and not of those who were distracted and who were wiped out by God. Life is meant to us to be an example. Let us look at the good examples and copy it. And let us look at the bad examples, learn from it, and keep away from it. The Bible says in verse 13, there is no temptation that comes your way that is bigger than what you can handle. And God will give you respite. He will make a way of escape. It's easy for us as human beings to think that, oh, my situation is the worst. My particular circumstance and my peculiar situation is worse than everybody's own. Nobody understands me. No, it is not so. Because God is a loving, just and fair God, the Bible tells us that he will never give to any human being what is beyond your ability to bear. And anytime we are faced with temptations, God makes a way for us to be able to persevere under it. The option is ours. Either to decide we're not going to take that option or we're going to persevere under it. We can say it's too much, I can't stand this, I'm not going to go through this. Or we can work together, cooperate with God so that we overcome and we have victory. This, my friend, is what I'd like to share with us today. Let us learn from the examples of the past. Let us not be distracted. Let us keep to the straight path. Let us overcome with all the grace that God has given us in times of temptation. May God bless you. Take heed. The Bible says, for those who think you stand, let us not be overconfident, but let us keep checking and examining our lives. All of these sins may not be peculiar to one person. Each person has their peculiarity. But whatever we see that is our own weak point, let us check ourselves and keep ourselves in line. God bless you. Thank you so much for watching and listening. Have